In the beginning, it was like, dude, go back to skateboarding. Why are you talking about this? No one cares. Go back to skateboarding.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wonderful people of the world, wherever you are, and welcome back to Shared Ingredients. I'm your host, Andrew Pelosi, and today I am joined by the legendary Mikey Taylor. Mikey is an ex-pro skateboarder turned entrepreneur and is the president of Commune Capital. He has a lot of entertaining and informative content on the subject of investing in finance that he comes at from a self-taught sort of layman's perspective. He's certainly not a layman anymore, but I love the genuine enthusiasm that comes from him. He's totally sincere. He's not one of those guys trying to sucker you into some course. He's not a fast talker. Everything about Mikey's the real deal. By the way, subtle plug, even though we don't focus too much on skateboarding in this episode, his skateboarding content is totally iconic. Go check it out on YouTube. From his makes to his slams, the guy's a madman with style and grace. Also, thank you, Mikey, for gracing us with your fresh haircut. I asked him politely not to rock a dad hat. Sorry for my high maintenance request. Mikey's such a genuine guy with an incredible story. I'm sure you're going to like this episode. Let's get into it. Yee! I'm with my boy today, Mikey Taylor, who is beyond epic. He definitely lives up to the word legend. He's a Renaissance man. He's a dad of three. He's an incredibly talented person on a skateboard, off a skateboard, and in life. He's one of the smiliest, happiest dudes with a good head of hair that I'm glad he's gracing us with.
Look,
Dude.
I came to play with you. Come on, dog.
I don't know how much you're paying for your haircuts, but like, I was like, this guy, man, he's wearing the dad hats. That's all good. You're a good dad of three, but like, you got to show that head of hair off, man.
Look, I'm ready, and I only show up my best for my guy.
I like it. I appreciate it.
Oh, I'm stoked to be here, brother. Thank you for the intro. You need to start coming with me wherever I go. That was a hot one. I'm not that cool, but I sounded really good. Thank you.
I'm happy to be your hype man, and we'll work out the terms. So I'll email you about that after. For anybody who does not know Mikey's story, Mikey started his career as a fantastic skateboarder. Mikey, let's start with the chapter of skateboarding all the way through your injury and where you are now, and then we will pick things up to present day.
Okay. Man, picked up a skateboard when I was like 13 because I saw one of my friends skating and I thought it was cool. It became an obsession of mine really quickly. And that turned into me trying to figure out how to not stop skateboarding. And it was kind of at that age of 17, 18, my parents wanted me to get a job, get ready for college. And that meant I was going to have to stop and I didn't want to. So I figured out how to get sponsors to give me free stuff and then start paying me. And that kind of ended up, turning into a full-blown career, which was like a dream come true. And then as I was skating, the concern of like, how long can I do this and what am I going to do after? I started becoming worried with that. And so my idea was if I can create companies and help build them while I'm influential as a skater, well, when I'm no longer a skater, I get to carry on in everything I was able to build in that kind of hot moment. And so that is what started the entrepreneurial journey of me creating business. And then my skate career ended. Wasn't prepared for emotionally what that was going to be like. Worked through a lot of insecurities, etc. And then that kind of brought me to my newest company, which is in private equity. Somehow made myself into the world of raising capital and using, dollars to deploy into opportunity in real estate.
Very cool. So going back to a couple of things there, as far as like the path that you were on, obviously you're crazy talented. And so it's funny to hear you say that basically you wanted to find a way to get sponsors and then have them pay you. Like,
yeah.
I mean, I feel like they kind of found you too because of your talent. Like, it's a funny way you tell the story because I think about it like, well, wait a minute, huh? Like, did it really come down? Am I hearing you correct that it was basically like, Mikey, you need to go to college or make this work for you? And then that's how you made it work for you?
Yeah. So basically like truthfully, I had no desire to be a pro skateboarder at all. I was like the type who was just all I wanted to do was skate. And my option that I was looking at is get sponsored and become a pro. That was the only kind of alternative that I thought was available so that I could skate longer. And dude, I come from a small city in Newbury Park. Like I didn't have access to the industry. So like me trying to figure out how to get sponsors to pay me, or before that, even give me free product. Dude, I convinced one of the kids in our neighborhood who had a video camera to film me, make a 2-minute video, I did 40 or 50 copies on like a VHS and then sent it out to sponsors. And even like going through the process of figuring out like where to even get the address to send sponsors, just looking through the magazine. And every once in a while, a company would have an ad and they'd put their address at the bottom. I didn't care the company. Whoever had an address, my video was going to. So it was like, just like, Hail Mary, like, let's just see what happens. I sent 50 videos out. I didn't get one call back, not one. So it was like, okay, crap, I got to do this again. So I made a new video. I sent it out to another 50 and then I got 3 calls. And that's kind of what started the journey for me.
Wow. So around what year is this?
This is around 2000, 2001. And like, dude, the first companies that called me, it was like Duff Shoes. And it wasn't like Duff Shoes like early 90s. It was like tail end of Duff's. Venture Trucks, which was like, that was a big one. And then Maple Skateboards. And it was tail end of Maple as well. So it was like, it's not like Girl was calling me,
Wow. And so was City Stars one of the first big ones? Like what was one of the big...
City Stars came after, actually. So it started Maple, Venture, Duff's. Then I ended up getting sponsored by Santa Cruz. And this is like, dude, no ads. Just these dudes are sponsoring me. And then Paul, who was my friend growing up, got sponsored by City Stars. Heath Brinkley was filming Paul, and I was always with Paul. So Heath basically was like, why don't you write for City Stars? And he asked me that like 40 times. And then eventually, like, my friend Justin wrote for them, and I had all these friends that started writing for them. It's like, okay, cool, let's do this. And that was like actually one of the biggest turning points in my career. But yeah, it took some convincing there.
That's great. So basically, were you on the college track or not on the college track? Like how big of a transition was that with your parents?
So I was going to be all in on the college track. Like I grew up with the idea that you had to go to college. And if you didn't go to college, success wasn't really an option for you. Now I know that's not true, but I all the way believed it. And so by not going to college, dude, I was concerned also. My parents were terrified. Like they were not stoked. A few years went by, they became more comfortable with it. But in the beginning, no, it was like, this is a big change up.
Yeah. And at what point, I know you're humble, but at what point did you realize like, okay, I'm actually like, this is a real thing. I'm a name now in this industry. I mean, how long did that take?
It was when I had a part in Transworld video in Bloom. And gosh, I can't remember the year. What was that? 2002, 2003, maybe? That's when I was like, holy crap, I made it. Like to have a part in Transworld was gnarly. And when, who called me? John Holland called me and asked me, I was like, this is unreal. Like I made it. Like that was a big staple.
Having your own shoe must've been nice a few years later too.
That was the next one. Yeah. But there was something about the Transworld videos. Like, dude, I grew up on The Reason and Modus and like Feedback. Like those were on repeat. And like, dude, the people in that was Arto, Rally, Muska, like Stevie Will, like this is a big deal. And all of a sudden I'm in that video. It was like this, that was like, I made it, right? Getting a pro shoe was, that was just something that like most don't get. And, when you have it, it's like, I think the highest accomplishment as a pro skateboarder. So yeah, dude, that was like another one.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, so for those listening, we'll spare you nerding out on skate talk for too long, being that this is not a skate podcast per se, but I'm a lifelong skateboarder and big fan of the culture. And I will say that, Mikey definitely stood out. For anyone listening, the era that we grew up in was not the social media era. People would wait and put out video parts. We couldn't consume and discover creators, talent, athletes by just picking up our phone. We had to wait. So when Mikey talks about the Transworld part, that's a big deal. We waited for VHS tapes to come out. It would take years to make these things. And that's how you would be discovered. That's how I found out who Mikey was. And it's funny, we're good friends now, but I started out, I'm still a fan of you as a human and skateboarder, but I started out as a fan like so many others did. I appreciate the gratitude you have here because there's a lot of hometown heroes who are great and never have that shot. And they didn't have that sort of foresight to send out videos of themselves. So let's talk about that. I think the sponsor me skateboard video analogy for anyone listening is something that I would consider a really interesting skill in life of how to present yourself. It's kind of like setting your expectations or your vision of where you want to be with a job, and you're putting yourself forward in a more creative way. So it's in essence like a video resume, but a lot cooler. Creating sponsorship tapes in skateboarding is coming up with the ultimate way of branding yourself in the world. It's a style thing. It's not raw skill. It's what you want to put out. Can you talk about how a sponsor me tape translates to other things in life, like starting a venture capital firm or something like that?
Yeah. It's funny. I can't remember what interview it was on, but like right as I started transitioning out of skateboarding, it's like 4.5 years ago, right? I'm doing this interview and someone's like, when did you realize you were an entrepreneur? And I was like, honestly, I didn't even know what an entrepreneur was for like a year prior to that. Like even when we started our first companies, like we didn't think we were entrepreneurs. We just thought we started a business. And on the interview, I'm telling my story and I was like, yeah, so, I made these videos and like, I figured out who to send them to and told him that whole process. Right. And he looked at me and goes, that's pretty entrepreneurial, dude. I'm like, is it? And then that mixed with, in the beginning, they were just giving me free product and my parents were on me about getting a job. So like, I looked at it as I get free product. I could use some of the product. I could sell it to my friends. I could make some money. And he's like, that was the first indicator of you being an entrepreneur. I just didn't know. So I think kind of what that means is like anybody who can figure out what they want to do and can go out and create it, that applies with anything because that's all it is, right? It's like video parts is like, okay, now moving forward into my career, my whole career is based around video parts, right? So if you think about it, you conceptually come up with all the tricks you want to do. You have an idea of where you're going to do them or how it's going to look. You're thinking about the music that's going to be involved. And you go through this, how do I take the idea in my head and make it a reality, right? Same thing applies to business. When you come up with an idea, which a lot of people do, the challenge people have is how do I act on that idea and create something out of it? I think skaters, truthfully, can be the best entrepreneurs. This is all we do. Come up with an idea, bring it to reality. So I think that was probably the biggest for me.
Come up with an idea, bring it to reality, and fall 1,000 times in the process and break bones.
That's the other thing. The view of failure is very different for a pro skateboarder, or not even pro skateboarder, for a skateboarder in general. Like falling, the act of failure is consistent for us. So skaters don't really fear the idea of failure. Failure is just part of the process for whatever they want to accomplish. Yeah, that applies. That applies to life for sure.
Yeah, my favorite Tommy Guerrero quote, which I consider like a life lesson that I like to live by, is he basically says that people come up to him often and say, man, you're super lucky. And he says, no, I'm not lucky. I'm fortunate. Because it's not lucky to fall on the concrete and throw yourself down that many times and get back up. It's fortunate, meaning it's fortunate that he found a passion, he pursued it, but a lot of hard work was involved to get there.
Yeah.
I assume you share that sentiment.
It's such a well said quote. Yeah. Really.
Yeah.
Good.
It's funny because I found, and it's like translated to our life. And I use that in life with my wife, Lydia. Like we found ourselves using the word lucky a lot and, just be, blessed, whatever the synonym is where you'd say, we have 2 wonderful children. We're happy. We have a roof over our head. Yes, we're blessed. We're fortunate. We're all these things. But a lot went into that. Like a lot of work went into that. We weren't given these things, given the gift of children. But I'm saying, I really do like the distinction between the words lucky and fortunate.
I agree. Totally agree. Yep. 100%.
Yeah. So you had an incredible run skateboarding. You had your own shoe. You had incredible sponsors. You built a fan base with loyalty. And you had the foresight to know that building brands and continuing your legacy outside of skating was important. But it also seems like you had a pretty catastrophic, surprising ending to this. Would that be the case?
Yes, that was the case, unfortunately. But yeah, basically, like when I was young, I had this idea of positioning myself to be in a better place, right? But it was all financially focused. It was like, how do I get my money right? How do I take control away from sponsor and put it into my hands, right? What I didn't put much effort towards was the emotional challenge that was going to come when my career ended. That was like, I wasn't even thinking about it. I thought if I have my money right, I'm good. And so basically what happened was I tore a ligament in my leg. And I was skating through it. I was skating through it for about a year. And it was painful, but I was dealing with it. And I was 34 at this time. So, I was just thinking about it. Like, dude, should I like talk to my sponsors and like fix this thing and then like, be able to enjoy however many years I have left? Or should I just, push through the pain? Call my sponsors, DC being my main one, sponsor me for shoes and clothes. And I was like, guys, what do you think? Like, should I fix this thing in 2 years? That's when my deal ends. Or should I fix it now? I'm going to be out 6 months. I'm going to skate a year and a half and just love it. And they were like, no, dude, fix it. Like, all good. 6 months. I'm like, all right, cool. Have surgery. They call me the next month, find a loophole in my deal, end it. And so, I'm laying on the couch. I can't even walk at this point. And when you have surgery, especially as an athlete, you're already working through a mental war. The physical part, the physical healing is the easy part. It's mentally staying sharp and not letting yourself go to the abyss and accepting that it's over. You'll never be back to what you once were, etc. And so in the middle of that battle, everything ends for me. And, talking about my journey of owning everything, the shoe component was the last kind of piece to the puzzle. I had already created we had already started St. Archer. So I had the beverage component dialed. I started Sovereign, which was skateboards. We were starting to build apparel. So I almost had those 3 categories. And then DC, which was technically shoes and clothes, was my big paying item. Well, when DC dropped me, Sovereign wasn't at the point of being able to really pay me. I was in the process of building it. St. Archer, we just sold, so there's no revenue coming in there. And so basically revenue goes away overnight. And so, I had to make a decision. And, for me personally, and I think most people feel this way, we have an idea that things are going to work out according to how we want them to work out. It's going to be done in our time. And so I had this idea that I was going to skate to 36, 37. My sponsors were going to call me and go, hey, dude, thank you for everything. We're going to do a going away party. You're going to have like a video part to end it. Thank you. You're awesome. Sail, right? I thought that's what it was going to be like. It was a phone call. It ended in 30 seconds. And so coming to terms with that, and my career's over, was the first part. Realizing that I had a lot of my identity baked into my career and going through kind of a depression moment of it, feeling like I didn't know what up was. Just, dude, it was a dark point in my life. And I achieved the financial aspect. I was in a position where I got to choose what I wanted to do. That is a huge blessing. Still the hardest thing I ever went through, right? And I remember Steve Barra, like right when this happened, he calls me and he's like, hey, dude, how you doing? And I'm like, not good. And he was like, look, I just want to tell you that you are going to look back at this moment and be so thankful for it, because this is going to be the fork in the road. And you are going to make the decision on, are you going to be stuck here? Or are you going to push through this? And if you push through it, which I know you're going to, it is going to put you in a trajectory that you never experienced before. And you'll look back at this moment and be thankful. And I remember hearing him say that, and I was like pissed that he said it. I was like, dude, what? That's so whack that you said that, right? He was spot on. And basically to kind of, bring, 2 years into 60 seconds, it was the most painful moment of my life. It was the most challenging moment of my life. And being forced to push through the difficulty brought so much growth, so much clarity, and almost this new love for myself. I know that sounds weird, but like it put me in a position to like actually enjoy what I was going to do. And now I look back at that moment and dude, I'm thankful DC ended it the way they did. I'm thankful that I was forced to figure this out, because if I wasn't forced, I probably would have tried to have 1 foot in, 1 foot out for a long time.
Wow. Thank you for that. And I have so many things to say, and I don't want to go deep in the rabbit hole, but I would just say I appreciate your perspective. And that's really a great lesson for all of us in resilience. Mm. As far as, it's a little bit of a strange question, but you're thankful for that experience. You often hear people say like, I wouldn't trade it for anything. Of course you wouldn't have traded skating. How much do you think that abrupt ending versus the fairy tale final video part, thank you for your service, would have changed where you are now? So if it had gone the other way, do you feel like you wouldn't be thriving the same way you are now? I mean, I guess it's like, I know that there's silver lining and you found the silver lining, But hypothetically speaking, like how much do you think it's a good thing that people have to experience downtimes like that or abrupt changes?
Such a good question. Well, with skaters, we have we want to be pro skaters as long as we possibly can. And at the same time, the longer you're a pro skateboarder, the harder it is to transition. And so, you see a lot of guys make it to their late 30s, even some in their early 40s, and they get to a point where it's like, what the hell do I do now? Right. And you see this difficulty in staying in skating, trying to figure something else out. And the time frame on reinventing yourself into the next thing, dude, in a lot of cases, 5 to 10 years. What I experienced it was much shorter than that because I was forced to do it. And I'm glad that was the case because I would have gone down that same path. It would have been, do I want to let this go? This is comfortable. I know what I'm doing here. Some people love me here. Now we get into the ego, that enjoyment. Yeah, for me, it was better. It was better to be abrupt. Now, would I be doing the same thing I'm doing now? I don't know. It's too hard to tell. But I know the idea for this company came because of the abruption of my career ending.
Yeah. And we'll talk about Commune and everything you're doing now shortly here. But going back to that idea of reinvention, I think that's a common theme that I like. I love the idea of reinvention in the sense that it really gives people the hope and motivation to know that you're not set in one career path per se. You don't have to follow a traditional path. But tell me more about that thought that you just said there of 5 to 10 years as far as being like the reinvention window. Am I hearing that correctly?
Yeah. So basically, if you break it down to what we all need, right? We all need identity. Why are we here? We all need purpose. Sorry, identity. Who are we? Purpose. Why are we here? Without answering those two questions, we have no idea if we're doing the thing we're meant to do and if we're doing that thing well, right? For example, we know if a cup, drinking cup, if the cup's holding water, it's living its purpose. If it's not living its purpose. But if we didn't know what the purpose of the cup was, you can't decide if it's doing it well or not. With skaters, dude, that is our identity and our purpose. This is who we are. I'm Mikey Taylor, the pro skateboarder. When people see me, dude, your in bloom part was so good. Your skateboard part was so good, right? That's my identity. The purpose, my job is to do this, create these video parts, go to these contests, right? When the skate career ends, it's really hard to figure out what that new identity and new purpose is. And a lot of times these insecurities come about that you weren't really aware of them being there. I wasn't. And so a lot of times we don't answer those first two questions. And then we're still stuck in this, well, I'm a pro skateboarder and this feels good. And I want people to praise me. It makes it really hard to go into an obscure field that no one knows who you are. You're dealing with ego there. And it's just not easy to address. And then on top of that, dude, we become pro skateboarders at a young age. This is 18, sometimes earlier than that. And our skill set feels like it's very specific to skateboarding. So then if we leave skateboarding at 37, 38, 41, 42, it's a little bit hard to figure out how to even apply these skills into the real world. And then you go through this, I can't do it. I'm not equipped to compete with the people that have been in this space since, they got out of college. And it just makes it hard.
Yeah. So getting into reinvention, you're definitely like a serial entrepreneur. You've done all these things. You built brands when you were in your skating heyday. And then you tell the St. Archer story a little bit, because I think a lot of people know about that. And I think it's there are a lot of St. Archer drinkers in the audience here. So tell the St. Archer story, and then we'll get all into everything you're doing now.
Okay. So I started a business with two of my closest friends. One of them, for all the skaters listening, was Paul Rodriguez. The other one was Josh Landon. And Josh came from originally the surf industry. He was a surf filmmaker. And then he moved into management. He was managing surfers, snowboarders, and a handful of skaters. And we were down filming a skate video together. And we just randomly started talking about business, and that conversation led to like us coming up with crazy ideas. And he threw out the idea, like, why don't we do a brewery? And, it was at the point where my wife was really on me about like what was next, right? Like, I don't know, 6 months prior to that, my wife was like, hey, you need to start thinking about like starting a business or what your life is going to look like after skateboarding. And so anytime people would talk about a business, I'd be all in. Okay, we got to do this. This is going to be my plan B, et cetera. And so that same energy kind of transferred over when Josh threw out, like, let's do a brewery. I was like, let's do it. Like, screw this skate film. Let's go do this thing tomorrow. So we abandoned the film. We were in San Diego filming. We started driving home, which was Thousand Oaks. And Josh goes, why don't you call your boy P-Rod? Like, P-Rod owns business. He's an investor. Like, let's pitch him our idea. And we were like, dude, I called Paul right there on the spot. We met him at Canaan, the Starbucks off Canaan, and pitched him on the idea we had the night before. And he was like, I'm in. Let's do this. And so that was like the beginning of us trying to figure out what that meant. It took us about a year of doing due diligence, building out a plan, probably another 7 months until we got to the point of launching it. And then we started St. Archer. And it was one of those Cinderella stories in some regard where we had created demand for it before we even opened doors. And the demand never went away. So, from the second of us creating it, it was, we need more. We need more money. We need a larger system. We need to produce more beer. How do we do this? And so we did 3.5 years of trying to capture demand or catch up to it. And then we ended up selling it to Miller Coors about 3.5 years later. So it was a crazy experience, man. It was freaking wild.
So St. Arch was incredible. And then before we get to Commune and everything, were there companies that came after that? So the coconut water company, et cetera, are those still the same crew or not really? And I'll cut this if not. Yeah.
Yeah. So my partner, Josh, after we sold St. Archer, started Villager, which I was an investor in. And my next business was Commune. So Josh is, dude, I mean, he's talented in a lot of regards, but in beverage, he understands it. So he started Villager and then started, I think, like 5 other companies from there. Company Harland, Company Ashland, and then I focused on real estate. So we took 2 different paths. And then I've invested in, I'm an investor of his. So I don't have anything to do with the company.
Cool. So for those listening, we're going to get into what Mikey's doing now, which is super impressive. I want to preface this by saying Mikey's passion for life, his resilience, and his enthusiasm is in many ways what I would attribute to his success. He goes all in on being the expert at something, trying until he gets it, building a community around him. So currently he is running a company called Commune Capital. And tell us what Commune Capital does.
Okay. So, so funny, man. I'm going to answer this very loosely in the beginning, but there's a lot of people that follow me that don't totally understand what I'm doing. So I think I need to do a better job at explaining it. But basically, we're a private equity real estate firm. We manage 3 different portfolios, a lending portfolio, a storage portfolio, and a multifamily apartment portfolio. And basically what that means is we go out and raise capital from investors. And then we then take that capital to deploy in opportunities in those 3 different asset classes. And then based on performance, we then give a return back to investors when done right. And then we get to participate in that return as well at kind of the, an oversimplified process. And then the other component of our business is just creating content around financial literacy. And that was something, at least in my story, that was very impactful. Is I had somebody come into my life that taught me about money, helped me create the discipline, and then also provided opportunity for me to partner with him on deals. And so basically the idea of Commune was, how do I replicate what he did in my life to as many people as possible? So we're really heavy on social media to try to educate and empower. And then we allow people to partner in deals that we have our money in.
That's great. Yeah, I feel like it's very cool to see how well you've engaged a community and sort of transitioned people who were fans of you from your personality and skating, whatever else, to now looking to you for financial literacy advice and whatever else. It's a strange question to ask, but when I remember joking with you like 2 years ago when you were just getting onto TikTok, or maybe it was even longer ago.
Yes.
that like, that's where all the kids were. And I was like, man, this guy's on TikTok. And yet you're doing it. Like, talk to me about the importance of branding, content, but more so like inspiring the youth. And I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it seems to me like you're in an industry, and I'm not talking about skateboarding now, and real estate, investment, venture, that you're in an industry that's a little bit older and definitely not as prevalent on social media or as fun on social media. So tell me like why that's important to you, is kind of reaching the youth for financial literacy. Just talk to me more about that.
Okay. So I'm going to have you make sure I don't go on too many tangents here. But basically, the reason for it in the beginning was I got to experience when my career ended, the blessing of managing money responsibly. And I looked around and saw a lot of people in my life not have that type of guidance. And then their life was impacted in a totally different way than mine was. So I saw the importance of it. And I also recognized that like this stuff wasn't being taught. Like even my experience in school, like I thought I was going to school to learn how to make money. I was going to learn some type of skill to then go out and to apply so that I get to make money. I didn't learn that. I didn't learn how to make money. I didn't learn what money was. As far as a financial aspect, nothing. And so in the beginning, it was just like, okay, I need to do this. There's a void here. I started doing it on Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, the platforms that I had already built. The challenge that I faced was I had built up a pretty sizable following, but everybody followed me to be a pro skateboarder. And money was something that, most people don't talk about. You definitely don't talk about that in skateboarding. So, dude, it was tough, man. It was like people weren't into it. People didn't understand it. It was probably 95% hate, 5% like, hey, yeah, this is cool. And I was just like, dude, I'm just going to power through it. Like, I know this is important. I'm just going to keep taking it on the chin and just, stay with it. And I remember like 2 years into it, I saw Drama, Rob Dyrdek's cousin. And he came up to me and he's like, dog, I just got to tell you, man, I don't know how you do it. Like, I don't know how you stay doing this. Like, I'm just watching you take a beating. And man, this is impressive, right? It was not easy. And then it slowly started to see, 95% hate, 80% hate, 60% hate. And now I'm getting close to a point where there's more people paying attention than hating. But when TikTok came around, kind of two things that grabbed my attention that I was really interested in. One, it was the first platform that was growing rapidly that I could get on and not have to transition my following. I could start from scratch. So I love that. The second thing is this is where the kids were. And so with finance, the challenge you have is like, dude, when you're 14, like you're not talking about money. Money's just not a concern. And so people are registering or resonating with our company, usually 25 to 34. And it's typically at a point where you're forced to figure it out. And so I know if you can learn about money when you're younger, your experience in your 20s, 30s, and then, extending out is going to be totally different than everyone else. So how do you make the impact on the youth? So I looked at TikTok as being an opportunity for that. And dude, it's happening. It's like, for Instagram, it took me, 5 years to get to 500,000 followers. I'm almost at 400,000 followers on TikTok. It's been a year. The growth that's happening is just rapid, and they are following me for financial literacy. It's like every once in a while I'll get a comment from a kid and it's like, does anybody here in the comments know that Mikey was a pro skateboarder? It's just a different thing. So I'm using it and I think it's important, man. I think it's life-changing. Then you look at like the percentage of people that get divorced, which is too high. The number one reason is finance. It's the most emotional triggering thing we have in our lives. And if you don't understand it, have a good relationship with it, etc., dude, you're in a position where you may fail. And so I see a huge value in it.
It's impressive to see how resilient you are. I love the drama anecdote that you gave of just taking it on the chin for like 2 years. So it's funny to hear. I mean, like you got such a fan base. So what were these haters all about? Like, stick to skating, Mikey? Like, don't tell us about this. Like, give me an example of what the hate was all about.
It's all over the board. Like, yeah, in the beginning, it was like, dude, go back to skateboarding. Why are you talking about this? No one cares. Go back to skateboarding. And now it's kind of taken on a different approach. But the one thing I notice is when I talk about something, there's a principle involved, right? No one ever argues the principle. They just argue that you shouldn't be talking about this, you know? So I usually just respond like, hey, look, dude, I'm all for you having a conversation about what I'm saying being wrong. Like I would love that. But like, you're not even talking about what I'm saying. You're just saying like, dude, what, you think you're a financial advisor now? Like, you know? And then I think the other thing too is like, when you talk about money, getting money to work, participating in opportunity, people that don't understand that think that they're not able to participate in it. So there's this barrier that has to be broken. And dude, our culture does a very bad job at this. Our school does a very bad job at it. We don't show people that it's possible. People come in thinking it will never be possible for them. And if you come in thinking, I don't get to participate in this, well, then you don't. So you're having to like break through all this, like almost like self-limiting belief, because they have to think it's possible first. Then you can start talking about, you know, the tools that you can use to get there. But if you talk about the tools and you don't think it's possible, then it's irrelevant what I'm saying. Does that make sense?
I love that concept. It reminds me of kind of looking at everything you achieved in skateboarding, where you have to believe you can do something, because if you can't, then it's definitely not happening.
That's right. The biggest one, the last time I got gnarly pushback, and I guess it happens every time whenever I talk about taxes, right? Huge pushback. And you have people that think that if you are participating in any type of tax incentive, then you're a crook, right? It's like you look at like, you know, everybody uses the example of Jeff Bezos, right? He owns, you know, billions and he doesn't pay taxes. And what I talk about is the tax code and why it was created. And ultimately, you know, the largest percentage of the tax code is incentives. This 95% is incentives, right? Only 5% of it's there to raise revenue. So if the purpose is incentive and the government ultimately has the tax code to lead you in a map to put dollars in areas that they want dollars in to either stimulate the economy, build more homes, et cetera, why not use it, right? But whenever you talk about that, you get a big blowback of it's not fair, you're stealing money. Look, I don't want to pay taxes. I'll be totally honest with you. When I make money, it's hard to make money and I want to keep as much of it. That's it. But if the government's going to say, hey, dude, will you please put dollars here? You can keep more of it. Yeah, I'm going to do it. But there's a social component to it, and it's becoming controversial. So there's that involved.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting when I think about going back to the idea of this transition from having a following base for doing one thing and now amassing a new fan base for doing something else. I think that one of the unique things that you've done is had the confidence to put your journey out there. Clearly, you've learned a lot about finance and real estate, but you didn't start, nor did you claim to be an expert. Do you feel like that was a challenge in terms of why you got haters saying, why are you claiming to be a financial expert now?
I think there's a component of it for sure. And I think it's a lot of things. Like, dude, I think one, like money is like what we were talking about earlier. Money's emotional. Like most people don't like talking about money. So if you talk about it, you have the perception that you're money hungry, right? I see that a lot. Like I did a video not that long ago talking about, you know, being wealthy or the journey to be wealthy is better than the journey of trying to look wealthy or the idea of actually being it, not looking it. And somebody left a comment like, dude, this is like so hypocritical coming from you, who all of your content is based around money, right? But it's the idea that like, if you talk about money, that's wrong because you're money hungry, regardless if you're talking about money management and how to manage it correctly, right? Money is just something that is just hard to deal with. Like, dude, even you go back to the Bible, right? They talk about money more than anything in there. It's one of those things that just is difficult to work with, right? The love of money is a root to all types of evil, right? It's true. It highlights who you are in a good or bad way. And so it's just a hard thing to talk about in general.
So much of your content is breaking down the stigma of money, right? Yes, it's the idea that it doesn't have to be that you're bling bling. I mean, you're actually trying to help people, and this is your vocation now. So I think that that's a legitimate thing.
And you know what I think too? Like, you gotta like, one of the coolest things that happens to me now is I'll get messages from people and they're totally honest. Like, hey dude, I just want to let you know when you were doing this, I thought it was so whack. Like, why is this dude talking about money? Like, and like I unfollowed you and then like a piece of your content popped up and I like annoyingly watched it. And I was like, this is interesting. And fast forward to 3 months, I watch your content religiously. I'm so thankful for it now. Right. So I think like one, there was a purpose behind why I was doing it. And I had to be okay knowing that I was going to have to break through a lot of scar tissue in a sense. And that wasn't going to be pretty. And a lot of that was going to be reflected on me. But it's kind of the idea that, when you say something and it triggers a response, maybe an emotional one, it rarely has something to do with you. And it's more about the person that's going off, right? That's how money is, man. So like, I'm just trying to have like have grace and I think compassion on people and their challenges so that when they're attacking me, dude, I know it's not about me. I know it's about something that happened with them financially that was negative or it hurt. And so having that lens on it, I think helps me look at that as an opportunity as opposed to they're attacking me and I need to attack back. And so it's just helped in my responses, like if somebody comes after me, it's like, hey dude, why do you feel that way? Like, was there something that happened in which you look at money as evil and how could we work through that? And, just trying to add value regardless if the person wants me to or not, the other thing too, man, like, yeah, like I think people struggle with the idea of like, why are you talking about money? Are you an expert? Like, are you like, I get all the time, do you have your license? Are you actually a financial advisor? No, I'm not. No desire to be. But it's like, I know what I know and I want to pass that on to people. And then you could either take it as value or you can't, but that's your choice, not mine. And I'm just going to focus on basically putting out truth.
Yeah. What do you think of that concept of people getting tripped up by the idea of like imposter syndrome? I feel like it probably holds people back from sharing their own stuff. I love what you just said there. You might not have some form of like, yeah, exactly. License or credentials, but you're telling your story. What do you think about that as far as advice you would give to others who want to talk about something or be known for something that they might not be a complete expert in based on a degree or a certification?
You know what? Someone I follow on TikTok, which is amazing. His name's The Layman Investor, right? And he basically documents his whole journey on becoming financially literate. And so it was like, hey, dude, I know nothing. I just read this book. This is what I learned. And it was all just like talking about his process of learning. People resonate with that more than anything, right? They want to go along your journey. And I think the other thing too is we think an authority is just talking like I know and you don't. But just creating content when you think of it puts you in a position where people go, he's a creator, not a consumer. And there's actually a component of I'm going to follow to listen to what you have to say. So the imposter syndrome is, look, if you're fully faking it, like, yeah, you should feel that. But like the other side of it is usually our insecurities are going to, drive us towards you're an imposter. That doesn't necessarily mean our feeling is reality. And so, dude, ask for guidance on that. Call up your friend, your closest friend. Just go, hey, dude, do I come off this way? Like, what do you think? Like, is there, do you feel like I am in a position to talk about this, et cetera? And dude, start building it out.
Yeah, totally. When it comes to asking your friends for advice,
make sure they're a friend that you can ask though. Look.
Yeah.
Having friends as you start doing different things, they're typically going to be the ones who discourage you the most. So make sure it's actually, you know what? I'm going to take back what I said. Don't even talk to a friend. You got to get a mentor or somebody doing it at a level that you're trying to get to. Ask their opinion because they're not going to hate on you. They're just going to tell you, this is what you got to do. Keep doing it.
Yeah, I appreciate that perspective. I was going to ask him, I know you've had some great loyal friends who you've kept through skateboarding and everything else in your life, but do you feel like the groups of people you surround yourself with have changed through your different life chapters, given what you're doing?
Yes. The answer is yes. I've had a lot of, look, my wife and I were talking about this the other day, this idea that some friends are meant for seasons, right? Like right now, my wife's going through young kids and there's certain people in her life that might only be there at the childhood stage. And that might've been the perfect friendship for that moment. Then you have other friends that might be there for a lifetime. For skaters, you might have friends that were supposed to be in your life while you were skating, and maybe they're not lifetime friends, and that's okay. And for me, that's what happened. I had friends that were there in the beginning. I had some friends that have been here the whole time. I have friends that left when I started doing this, and I've created new friends since doing this. That's just that's how life goes, you know?
Yeah, totally. So for this last section, I just want to get into, you're a super hyped up guy. Let's talk about advice for the up and comers. If somebody wants to, we'll start specific and then we'll get general.
Okay.
For younger kids who you're influencing on social, who are looking at financial literacy from ages 14 on, what's the simplest advice you could give them? And I know it's a very broad question, so if I need to hone it in, let me know.
I would say probably the best advice I could give them is we have this idea that we have to have a lot of money before we figure out what to do with it. The most powerful component is discipline. And it's the idea that you learn to be responsible with little before you can be responsible with a lot. That is so, so powerful. So when you're in the stage of getting started and maybe you're only making, the bare minimum, that is the very best time to create the discipline. Save a certain percentage of every check, create that discipline. As you start making more money, don't increase lifestyle, all of that. The foundation is the most important part. So that is something you can start early. And like anything, man, the longer that discipline goes, the more powerful it becomes when you start really doing numbers. So starting young.
That's great. And putting out, you've put out so many specific sort of hypotheticals for people to think about savings, et cetera. What is something that you think that people won't believe to be true that probably is true for them?
Ooh, that's a good one. I think most people look at something like financial independence as being not possible for them. But actually, when you look at the two demographics of the most successful investors, a lot of times it's teachers. Believe it or not, teachers don't make a crazy amount of money, but they are disciplined with how much they put towards their, let's call it retirement or future. And they just don't pay attention. It's just, consistency, right? The other guy is the person who's doing a ton of due diligence, right? Knows everything happening with maybe a business that he's going to invest in, right? Everyone in the middle has a really hard time. So it is possible for you would be one. Two, just because somebody makes money doesn't mean they're good with money. That is probably the most important thing I learned moving into this journey. I know a lot of people that are making $1, $2, $3, $4 million a year. They're terrible with money, terrible with it. Then I know people making 60 grand a year and they are crushing it. And the person making 60 grand a year is actually going to have a better outcome than the person making 3 million because their discipline's created and theirs isn't. So don't get hung up on the number. It's all about consistency and discipline.
Fantastic advice. Appreciate it. So as we wrap, tell people where they can find you. Tell them anything you want as far as what you may be able to offer them. Promote yourself, please.
Okay. So if you go to any social platform, you can find me. Just put in my name, Mikey Taylor. I'm going to come up. I'm the most active on TikTok. I'd recommend getting on there. It's my favorite platform right now. And also on my Instagram, I have a number that you can text. And I have this group it's getting pretty large. And we do a Monday morning motivational text every Monday morning, 9:00. So if you want to be involved in that, please join. I spend 25 minutes a day responding to as many people as possible personally. And I love that aspect of social as well. And then if you are interested in learning about investing or looking for opportunity, our company is Commune Capital. communecapital.com. You can go through our site, see the deals we're involved in. You could apply to invest with us, etc. So we'd welcome that as well.
Awesome. Mikey, you're a legend. You're a great human. You're talented. I really appreciate you being on this. I hope that you all enjoyed this as much as we did. Check him out. Flood him with questions. He'll answer. And thank you, man.
I appreciate you, dog.
You too, dude. Have a great day, and I will talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Later,
all right,
bro.
G, I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for tuning into this episode. Be sure to go check out Mikey Taylor at Mikey Taylor on Instagram, TikTok, and also check out Commune Capital. Aside from Mikey's accounts being entertaining and informative, he really does care about giving people good advice and help answering any questions you might have. So definitely hit him up. If you like what you heard today, please leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. Share it wherever you're listening to it. Pass the good word. All of that makes a massive difference, and I appreciate your support. You can find me at Pelosi and at Shared Ingredients. Till next time, stay rad, and I'll see you soon. Yay!